What is up, guys? Delboy here. So according to an article on Boxing Scene, Marcos Maidana is targeting a comeback, and it's looking likely that he will be under the PBC banner should this happen. Maidana announced his comeback in a video that was released to various different Spanish news outlets, and it really looks like this comeback has legs. According to this article on Boxing Scene, Marcos Maidana has actually been training for the past month, and he intends to fight at welterweight again, which is interesting considering all of the weight he's put on. Can he still make that weight? If he makes a comeback, we will see, but I wanted to share my thoughts on this comeback. I've got to say, when Marcos Maidana was active, he was always one of my favourite fighters. I like aggressive fighters. I like guys who can punch. I like guys who fight with bad intentions, and Marcos Maidana did exactly that. He was never the most skillful, but he always came to fight, and he could give anybody problems on his day. And ultimately, he had a very good career. I mean, he's got a few good wins on the resume. He was obviously the first man to beat Adrian Broner. That was his standout victory. But he also holds victories over Josecito Lopez, Victor Ortiz, Jesus Soto Caras, Eric Morales, Petr Petrov, DeMarcus Corley. He's got a few names on the resume. He had a very respectable career. And he was also a two-weight world champion. For me, Marcos Maidana achieved as much as he could have given his talent. He did very well. And I've got to say, even as a guy who likes Maidana, even as a guy who really enjoyed his fights, I'm kind of, a bit unsure on this comeback. In an ideal world, I don't really want to see it. Because to me, can Marcos Maidana, at 35 years old, kind of fight with that same intensity he once did? Can he fight with that same aggression? Can he fight with that same punch output? He had a style that was very physically taxing. He had a young man's style. He never relied on flashy skills or great boxing ability. He was, a down in the trenches type fighter. He was a pressure fighter who comes forward. He liked a war. He liked to get up close and do some damage. At 35 years old, can Marcos Maidana rewind the clock, lose all of that weight, and get to the same standard he was fighting at just over 4 years ago? I think it's unlikely, especially given his style. Now, we've seen Tyson Fury come out of a long layoff and make a successful comeback. However, Tyson Fury always had those fundamentals to fall back on, and it kind of meant that even if Tyson Fury lost 10 or 15% of himself physically, he's still a very good boxer. He's still got something to fall back on. Has Marcos Maidana? I'm not really sure. I mean, look at what happened when Ricky Hatton mounted a comeback. He obviously got knocked out by Manny Pacquiao in 2009, and I believe Ricky Hatton returned 3 years later in 2012. And, Hatton was always a guy, much like Marcos Maidana, who, relied a lot on his physicality, his high-octane style, his aggression, and, on the comeback, that wasn't there, to be quite honest. He was a shadow of his former self, and don't get me wrong, he still gave Senchenko a few problems. He still came to fight, but, the body can't keep on performing that style for too long, especially after a long layoff. So to me, I'm doubtful that Maidana can mount a successful comeback. I would like to know the reason why he's doing it. Is it a money issue? Does he need a few more dollars in the bank? Or does he just genuinely miss boxing? And bear in mind, now this is fairly, it's public knowledge, but, Maidana has been on record in saying he never really enjoyed boxing. He doesn't follow the sport. He's not a fan of the sport. So, has he caught the boxing bug? Does he just want to return? Or is it a money issue? If it's a money issue, I mean, it's not a good look. I'm really doubtful whether Marcos Maidana can mount a successful comeback. Now, don't get me wrong, I would love to be proved wrong, because if we had a version of Marcos Maidana who was still operating at around his best, he's a very good addition to the welterweight division. I mean, I remember when Keith Thurman was talked about fighting Maidana, and I thought at the time that was a very good fight, and Marcos Maidana, anywhere near his best, would have a great chance to beat Keith Thurman. We saw how Josecito Lopez gave Keith Thurman all he could handle. Imagine a prime Maidana's pressure on Keith Thurman. You know, Maidana throws a lot more punches than Lopez. He hits a lot harder than Lopez. He's got a much more unconventional style than Lopez. I'm telling you now, a prime Maidana would have given Keith Thurman all he could handle. And if a prime Maidana or something close to it comes back, listen, he can give guys right now problems, but I think it's very unlikely to get a good version of Marcos Maidana back, unfortunately. And as I said, I say this as a guy who always enjoyed watching Maidana fight. I just loved his no F's given style. I really, really enjoyed it. So yeah, I have a doubtful eye looking over this comeback, but you know, if it comes to fruition, we will see how it pans out. Share your thoughts below. Do you believe Marcos Maidana can mount a successful comeback? Or are you like me? Are you doubtful? Do you think this is all going to end in tears? Share your thoughts below. Peace.